Hey, what's going on, family? Welcome to the live stream tonight. It is March 18th, and I want to talk about the proposed NAR settlement and its impact on consumers and the real estate industry professionals as well. And I have two guests with you tonight. I was trying to get about 4 to 5, but you have to wait for those other ones. One of them was Rasheedah Hill. She's busy. She had a prior engagement. Another one was Nathaniel Crawford. He's out of Miami, black luxury listing agent. Amazing gentleman. He'll be on the feed later this month. But you will not be disappointed. I have tonight the president of Young Realtors Division of NARAB. If you're not familiar with NARAB, it's the National Association of Real Estate Brokers. I have Miss Rasheedah Jones on the stage. Hello, hello. And I
Hello. Hello.
also have, sorry about that, I have the CEO and broker of Langley Stone Group, an agent, a brokerage out of Pasadena, California. And she is, what is she? She's a certified luxury home specialist, Miss Letrice Barge. Welcome to the podcast feed. I don't know what you want to call it.
Hi.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, today I wanted to have a discussion. I was actually part of a discussion yesterday on another channel, and I just thought it was pertinent for us to get together and have a conversation for what it means for consumers and real estate professionals that look like us, right? Um, and I want to touch on, before we get into it, I want to touch on exactly what the proposed settlement is, and then go through the statement of facts from NAR as far as the changes it's going to have for consumers. Give me 1 second. Let me pull it up. So the proposed settlement is a $418 million settlement. Now, that is a lot of money, but it's much less than the $2 billion that they were asking for. And in the agreement, it is the abolishment of the participation rule that requires sell-side agents to make an offer of compensation to buyer brokers. Now, if you're not familiar with that, I realize a lot of consumers aren't even sure what the dynamics of realtor commissions are. We will get into that in this stream, but I also want to go into this statement of facts straight from NAR. This was released this weekend, and I want to scroll right to the second page where it talks about the implication for home buyers and sellers. This settlement will preserve the choices consumers have regarding real estate services and compensation. After the new rule goes into effect, listing brokers and sellers could continue to offer compensation for buyer broker services, but such offers could not be communicated via the MLS. The settlement expressly provides that sellers may communicate seller concessions, such as buyer closing costs, via the MLS, provided that such concessions are not conditioned on the use and or payment of a buyer broker. So that is what we're working with. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask them. Uh, Ms. Jones, Ms. Rasheedah Jones, what are your
Yes.
thoughts on this proposed settlement?
You know, um, it's interesting because, as you mentioned, it started with some, astronomical things. And I think, when you really hear the claims that were being brought forward, you start to really think about your own, real estate practice. And as a broker,
Yeah.
14, a 19-year industry vet, I started to, go back to my policies. I started to pull out my agency documents, my listing presentation coursework. Like I really started to think about, making sure we were aligned with just doing the job we know to do. And so, my initial thoughts are I think it just puts us back, on our toes. I think we've gotten comfortable in the industry. Um, to your point with this conversation, there's very little that consumers will understand about what is being done and said here. And so they're usually leaning on us for that guidance of understanding, to understand, why in some instances, a listing is 7 to 10%, depending on the work and the marketing and the class of the listing and the techniques and so forth that we have to employ to do the job. And so I think getting back to, really clearly defining what it is that we do and at work, I think that's going to be critical. The numbers don't
I,
matter. I think it's just going to put us
yeah,
back in a space of really foundationally running our business.
I think you hit it on the head. I think us realtors and realtists, real estate professionals, did a bad job expressing to the public what we did, our value proposition. We were too busy on TV shows showing the cars, showing the luxury homes, and we did not show the behind the scenes grunt work that it takes to get a transaction across the finish line. So to them, what what good are we? We just, we show a couple, we open a couple doors, show a couple houses, and get to drive our nice cars, right? Um, Letrice, what do you say? What do you what do you have to say about this proposed settlement? And I'll get into some questions afterwards.
Okay. Yeah. So I think that the headlines that we're seeing all over social
Mhm.
media and on the news, uh, no commission, sellers don't have to pay commission. All it's very misleading,
Yes.
right? So it's not that they don't need to pay commission. It's that each party will now have to be responsible for negotiating their own compensation, right? And so I think it sounds daunting and it sounds intimidating, especially for agents that may already be struggling or perhaps are more buyer heavy, as we call in this industry. All it means is that they need to step up their skills
Yep.
and be able to negotiate on their behalf, on their client's behalf. Because at the end of the day, as a listing agent, I don't want to get under contract with a buyer that's not represented by another professional in the industry because they're not going to understand how to navigate the transaction. And I think that that puts my seller at more
Mhm.
risk. And so I
Definitely.
think it sounds daunting and headlines capture people and makes it seem as though no more compensation is going to be available, but that's just simply not the truth.
Most definitely. Most definitely. What's going on, Chris? Catherine, thank you all for leaving comments. Please go ahead and like this video and share it with your friends and colleagues. And more people need to know about what's happening. And I have that question for you too. I know in the Carolinas, one of the stipulations are, which is a good thing, a buyer agency has to be written. But in the Carolinas, that has been the case as long as I've been practicing. And we can't even submit an offer until we have a written buyer agency agreement outlining the terms of it. And in that buyer agency agreement, we make it clear that the commission, they're responsible for the commission. So it just happened that we get it from the sell side, but let's say the sell side, actually, no, I don't even need to give you a hypothetical. I had a sell side, I was representing a buyer, and they were offering 2%. Well, my standard commission was 4. And my seller, there's no standard in the industry. I just know my worth and my value, right? So I do 4, anywhere from 4 to about 8 right now. But they had to express to them that, okay, we can go see this. The seller's offering to pay 2. You're responsible for the difference based on the buyer agency agreement that was signed. That is a legally binding contract. And they were okay with that because they realized everything that I was doing in the transaction, making sure that they were being looked out for. Now, in Memphis, where you are, Ms. Jones, and in California, is that common practice? Because I realized in Florida that buyer agency it didn't need to be signed. It wasn't signed. It was just, how is it in your states?
In Tennessee, so I'm Tennessee, Mississippi,
Yes.
Arkansas,
Okay.
with primary brokerage here in Tennessee. Yeah, we're a full disclosure state, and so the practice is you have a buyer's representation agreement. At my firm, it's an exclusive buyer representation agreement.
Yes.
And so those are typically in place before you're showing, before you are presenting. It's very clear, and you give them
Hmm.
some time to review the document and ask questions. But yeah, so it's not a new practice for us to implement that.
What about in California?
So in California, the buyer representation agreement is actually it's optional. It is not something that is required. However, at our brokerage, that is something that we do require when you're working with the buyer. It's just one of the documents that we prefer to have completed prior to, just for the purposes of explaining to your client what the expectation is, because you're making an investment of your time. And typically buyers, you're going out and you're taking them to see properties, multiple properties, oftentimes before they get under contract. So it is just going to shift the conversation a bit, I think. But yes, we do have that as a requirement for our brokerage.
For your brokerage.
Changing that though, I read something that came down from one of our associations is that they're going to make it now a requirement.
Nice. Okay. And with this proposed settlement, do you think this benefits the consumer, buyers or sellers? Because I went down the rabbit hole on Reddit today. I don't know why I did it. I did. And you have a lot of consumers believing that this is amazing. This is the best thing to happen, both buyers and sellers. I have my thoughts. Letrice, what is your thoughts regarding, do you think this will benefit the consumers, this proposed settlement, and allowing or making it so the seller is not paying for the buyer's commission?
I think it impacts the buyer pool depending on the buyer pool that you're working with, right?
Yeah.
So if you're working with first-time buyers that have limited financial resources and access to capital to get into their home, I think it's going to impact them. It could potentially impact them adversely unless they're working with a skilled agent that can negotiate on their behalf, right?
Yes.
When it comes to the seller, I think that sellers may feel as though it's beneficial because now they're not having to compensate the buyer's agent as well. However, I think what we are going to see is more agents, once they've improved their skill set, write it in the offer. They're going to write in their offer, in addition to my offer at asking, I may ask for closing costs, and now I'm going to also ask for you to pay 2% for my professional services, right? Or 3% or whatever it is that they negotiate. So I think it could potentially impact a portion of the pool of buyers in an adverse way that may have limited financial resources. But I think that over time, we'll find other ways to negotiate and write those options in the contract.
I'm with you. I do have some pushback.
Okay.
But Miss Jones, Miss Rasheedah?
So I think, there are pros and cons to what we're going to experience. However, I'm just a real estate professional that I don't negotiate a listing with the intent for another agent to receive the benefit of the commission. I negotiate for the services I am providing. Yes. And so I'm not going to be devaluing my 19 years of service in my listing presentation, my marketing approach. My price is my price, and yesterday's price is not today's price, right? So I think that there's this overarching sense that this means sellers will now pay 50% less toward professional services. Right. And to me, that's just not the case. Additionally, I think it will impact buyers. It will impact the most sophisticated and able buyer. It will impact the low-income DPA assistance buyer. Because now we're saying to the lender and all the partners in the transaction, instead of saying your closing costs are going to be somewhere between 4 to 6%, it's like 6 to 10%, right? Or somewhere, that we're asking them. Yeah,
it's just going to take a longer time for people to actually get their monies together to buy a home.
Right. That's right. Yeah. So then that impacts the ability to get a transaction done. Doesn't matter which side those funds come from. And then I want to lift up something that to me is tricky about the terms, right, that we read. Because what I read, just
Mhm.
my interpretation of the proposed terms
Yes.
is, okay, we're going to remove this space of confirming commission in the MLS. That's something you guys will do as professionals.
Mhm.
But you can put buyer concessions in there, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So then now we start to be, hint, hint, concessions could look like the fact that they have to absorb their own professional services fee,
Mhm.
right? And so an automatic space of starting to negotiate is when you're looking at a listing, and if they want to work, want the deal to work, that you've already negotiated that, right?
You
You're
agreed.
already telling your sellers, you know what, in this particular market climate, you're going to want to offer, X number of dollars towards buyer concessions if you want to
Yep.
move the property, right? And
Yeah.
so that becomes part of our presentation,
Yeah.
becomes part of how we negotiate. So again, I think there will be impact, there will be benefit, because we as practitioners have to get on top of things. But I think we have to also be protective of each other. I'm not going to negotiate and then say, yeah, homie, I ain't paying no buyer's commissions, you on your own. Like, we have to also be good stewards of the business, and give the
Yes.
kind of ethical and integrity standard that we expect in the transaction too.
I totally agree. I totally agree. Now, what I believe regarding the impact on buyers and sellers, first I want to go back, and one, it was always negotiable. If you looked at the listing agreement, the seller did not have to agree to pay the cooperating broker. Like, it was always in there, and it's highlighted several times, but that's for another day. You just had to read it to see it. But I think it will definitely impact buyers, but it really is going to depend on the market. If it is a seller's market, then yes, it will impact buyers dramatically, or at least first-time home buyers, because it takes a while for them to, at least my experiences, to get the funds together to have the closing costs, the what 6 to 7%. Now they're going to need 9 to 10% of the purchase price to get that together.
Mhm.
But this is where I think it was just a very short-sighted settlement on both sides, is the fact that when it is a buyer's market, if you want me to make an offer on that property, you better believe that 3% that they want to say was standard, I'm asking for like 5, because it's a buyer's market in like, you need me to show your home. You need the buyer to where you would be asking for that 3% or 2.5% or 2%, whereas now you're telling me it's fair game, I can negotiate it, and your house has been sitting on the market for 6 months. Like, so, like, you think short term that yes, it's going to be a net win, but no, it's going to be a net loss in those instances. And what is also going to deter people too is new construction. More people's going to look at new construction, because at least, I don't know in your areas, at least in the Charlotte area and in the Carolinas, there's tons of new construction going up. So, and I just left a new construction community, and the rep there was like, look, we were talking about this right here. And they're like, look, those houses over there, we're offering 4%. And I'm trying to get it to where we can offer 6%. And I'm like, okay. So as opposed to in July, when this proposed settlement goes into effect, as opposed to me or certain buyers that don't want to negotiate or don't want to go tooth and nail, they're just going to show new construction. And they're willing and able, because it's already priced in their profit, to pay that commission. So I see that being a thing. And one thing that is not being mentioned is that it takes away the fact that it can't be publicized on the MLS. It's opening the door for a lot of backroom deals, a
Mhm.
lot of quid pro quo, where I can't prove that they're doing something wrong. But why are those two brokerages continually making deals happen when I know I'm making very good offers, right?
Mhm.
And you want to talk about redlining and keeping people out of a community? Well, I think this is a way in which that can easily happen because it's not as transparent as it was. Well, if it goes through, it won't be as transparent as it is now.
That's a
What are your thoughts?
perspective.
That is.
That's a perspective I don't think I gave much weight to. But now, when you overlay this idea of our NARAB affiliation as Young
Hmm.
Realtors, we talk about how we were formed, why we
Yeah.
exist, and part of that was around representation for communities of color, for families of
Yeah.
color, to be able to show properties in neighborhoods we wouldn't ordinarily get the opportunities, et cetera, et cetera. And so I agree that part of the need for representation, independent representation, sometimes makes me think about, where we started and why we needed buyer representation
Yeah.
specifically, and how that could change the face of how deals are done and what other practices may come from this kind of settlement.
And again, the reason why I think it's very short-sighted is we have an affordability problem right now in America, right? We talk about high prices, we talk about high interest rates. So now we're going to add another cost to buyers, another hurdle for them to get over to buy. Again, it doesn't make any sense as far as it's not accomplishing the goal that I think they sought out to accomplish. Because I don't foresee it accomplishing that goal. Um, One other
But
thing,
I think, but it does set out to accomplish what I think
yes,
the multitude of, as they say, copycat lawsuits and these
yes.
small,
Oh, to get
because
yes, for that purpose, yes, it gets things off the back. But as far as advocating for the
well, not
consumer,
off the bat, but
yeah,
let's think about the why these lawsuits and how much research and time was spent to
yeah,
develop these particular lawsuits in the states that they were developed, right? And
hmm,
so when you think about that and you think about the positioning, we also can talk about the disruptors that appear over time and how we've seen them come into our markets. And I think this is a play. I think this is to dismantle how we real estate in our markets, right? When
yeah,
you have companies, I won't mention names, but you have companies who discount the services, 1%, I'll list your home for 1%.
Mhm.
And they use these tactics. So I really think that the approach is going to be accomplished. This is going to dismantle the standard practice of listing and selling properties, right? Because you'll now have this insertion in a larger scheme of discount services from those disruptors. And so I do think there's a back end to the big picture.
Yeah.
and I'm with you on that. I think again, we just did a poor job showing our value and everything we do in a transaction because as soon as you mentioned it earlier, Latrice, as soon as those buyers call
Mhm.
that seller or even this listing agent and the buyers don't know what they don't know, it's going to be such a headache and a burden on the listing agent to where they're going to realize they're going to be like, I haven't been compensated enough. Or the
Right.
seller that's trying to save money and not pay any commissions, they're going to be like, they're going to go crazy, even trying to schedule showings. How like it's just going to be insane. They're not going to know what they signed up for. And then after showings, let's talk about your inspections, your due
Mhm.
diligence, the renegotiating of that, knowing what to look out for.
Right.
It is a ton of things that again we just didn't show our value and where we're needed in every part of the transaction. That people are, it's going to be a rude awakening when they go trying to go at this alone.
Yeah, I agree with that. That's what I was saying earlier is that at the end of the day, there are multiple things that take place within a transaction. And I don't
Yes.
think that the, the buyer's agent's value was really like, we just didn't communicate it or convey it appropriately.
No.
Now we're in a position where it'll be the more skilled realtor and realtist that is, going to dominate the industry. because our skill sets are needed to negotiate when it comes to, once we're under contract and there are issues with the property. A buyer by themselves is not going to understand how to negotiate those terms. They may not understand buyers as they are, even when we're representing them after doing a proper consultation. They still have multiple questions. They still have things that they just don't understand in the process. And then us as licensed professionals, we run across situations even after being in the business. And I've been licensed for about 4 years now, so I'm relatively newer to the industry compared to you guys. But every transaction is so uniquely different. Even though the steps within a transaction are the same, things that happen within the confines of a specific transaction vary. And so you may come across a situation as a licensed professional that you get stumped on. So you have to make some phone calls to people that how do we navigate this particular challenge? We're going to have buyers in situations that they just don't even understand how to negotiate on their behalf. They're going to be in a losing situation without a professional to guide them.
Now, on a show of hands on the panel, how many times have you dealt with an emotional buyer or an emotional seller, right? And then when you get that inspection report back, that is 50 to 120 pages. And that seller gets that inspection report back, never seeing, or maybe they've seen one, maybe they sold a couple homes or bought a couple homes, but they see it and they see all of these issues, right? I have clients where I send in, they get the inspection report and they're ready to World War III if everything is not done and taken care of.
Correct.
We as professionals have to take the emotion out of it and let them know what's standard, what's not standard, what's expected. And in North Carolina, it is an as-is state, meaning the seller doesn't have to fix anything when the inspection report comes back. Like during the due diligence period, they don't have to fix anything. Now, is it customary? Yes. But do they have to? Definitely don't. So I see a lot of future lawsuits where buyers are going to say they've been bamboozled, they've been a fraud, and because the seller has their due diligence money, we have due diligence deposit to where when you make an offer, you present the purchase price, your due diligence deposit, and earnest money deposit. Your due diligence deposit is non-refundable. And typically nowadays, because of the seller's market, it's at least $5,000 that you're not going to get back off jump. Okay. So to go under contract, you have these buyers giving that due diligence deposit, and then they find out they have a 120-page inspection report that all these things are wrong with the home, need to get done. Do you think they're going to be happy and just sit still when the seller comes back and be like, I'm not fixing anything? Like it's just, I think it's opening up for a lot of litigation to where, again, and a lot of headache. What about your states? Do you have those? What is your due diligence process or inspection period? What does that look like?
So in California, we do have a due diligence period, but we do not have a due diligence deposit. We just have an earnest money deposit. And within our due diligence period, we have that's the opportunity for us to complete our inspections, our primary home inspection, and then any subsequent inspections that are required after the initial inspection. And so I think that you're correct when we talk about buyers being really emotional, or sellers too, when they're under contract and they get the report back and they're like, my house is in great condition. What are they talking about? And so, talking your clients off the ledge, again, I think it really just goes back to us as professionals, honing our skill set to navigate the conversations and ensuring that we can, help our clients navigate through transactions.
No, I totally agree. What about Tennessee and Arkansas?
So in Tennessee, in Arkansas, we don't have the due diligence requirement for funds. We negotiate a period of due diligence or inspection. And so in that, you're also negotiating for accepting the property as is or giving the seller X number of days to address it in the form of a proposal for repair. Yes. And so that becomes a space of negotiation, that due diligence period. But you guys should almost be in North Carolina with that kind of upfront commitment.
Yeah, exactly. That
Like,
upfront commitment. And that's the thing. Like when we go look at homes, like I am looking at things before we even submit an offer, like things that are going to come up that I'm advising the client of, like, we're going to have to look out for this, this, and this. Are you prepared knowing that these need issues that we can see? It's apparent, right? We don't need an inspection report to see these things, right? But are you okay to make that offer, give that due diligence deposit, and move forward, right? Is and if you have these unrepresented buyers or buyers that don't want to go with a real estate agent because they have to pay out of pocket, they don't know what they're looking for. They don't know what they don't know when they go through a home, right? So
yeah, that's tough. I think yeah, you guys should already kind of be real careful in North Carolina, but I do think the piece around the buyer, it's gonna eliminate a good pool of buyers, not necessarily because they may not have the resources, because in most cases we assume people are prepared for home ownership, and so there's some reserves there. You if you've been working with them, you told them kind of what to expect in terms of set aside. It's really a question of want to in a lot of cases, right? Oh, so you gonna make how much? And then there's that conversation, right?
Yeah.
And so we're back to the conversation about value when that happens. So it's a gray area in my opinion with some of the things that are gonna come from this.
And one thing I did not see, and I read through the final proposed settlement. I didn't read it in its entirety, but I did read through it, skim through it. A couple of things that I got a couple comments. Kareem, thanks for joining us. I appreciate it, family. You can watch the replay. We just talked about some pros and cons for the consumer regarding this NAR settlement. So proposed settlement, clarify that. And one thing I did want to touch on is I lost it. I had it before Kareem's comment. It'll come back to me. How much? Oh,
You said you ran through the settlement.
Ran through the settlement. Oh, yeah. So the gray area. I'm a non-practicing attorney. I practiced criminal law for a number of years, and I love the gray area. I'm not gonna lie. Like I live in the gray area, and the gray area is the MLS. You can't talk about commissions in the MLS. I don't know if that means like what's publicized to the public, or how the MLS has private remarks. Right? Can I talk about what the commission will be, or the seller contribution will be, or concessions will be in the private remarks? Because I only can imagine as a listing agent, if you have that property in that desirable area that is move-in ready, how many calls, texts, emails you're going to get asking about, are your clients offering seller concessions?
Right.
Like that alone is enough for me to like create my own website for each property and just talk about the seller concessions for that property. So
I was sharing this with one of my brokers, and that's a thing. I'm like, you're going to be educating your team to ask questions before you ever go out and show it. So when I'm pulling those listings, and maybe the numbers ain't quite making sense, I have to decide what I'm willing to show, to my client as an opportunity. So you start to think about how you're protecting, your investment in time, but also making sure that it's a deal that can be realized by your client who may or may not have those additional resources to pick up the rear.
Most definitely. And Stacy, yes, you can publish it on your own website. And what I believe this will also hinder, let's transition this to, we talked about the consumer, how it impact the buyer and seller. Let's talk about the industry, the realtors, the realtists, the professionals. I think to answer your question, Stacy, and I'm going to tie it into this, I think this will bolster the realtor that have, or realtist that has an established name in the community, whether it be social media, their website, whatever it may be, or just keen and knowledgeable in how to gain traffic and attention, right? To where you want people to know, come to your website, to know the commission. And it will weed out those part-time agents, I believe. What do you think the impact on the industry as a whole? Again, I think as an industry as a whole, I don't like it had to take this, but personally, I think it's a good thing. As far as weeding people out, we have a very low barrier of entry, right? And I like working with professionals, right? And not everybody in this industry are professionals or even know what they're doing. What are your thoughts regarding how this will impact the industry as a whole?
I think that I do think that it's going to weed out the agents that are doing this part-time or they've got multiple things going on. I do think that it's going to require an agent that is a bit more sophisticated in their contract negotiation skills, really understands what's going on in the industry, following market trends, following the understanding, just having an understanding of what the rules are. In our MLS here in California, to my understanding, our associations have said that they will not allow us to put anything with regards to commission compensation on the MLS. Now, it didn't specify if we could put it in the private remarks, but I'm just that's such a, I know agents are going to get a lot of calls with regards to that.
Yeah.
Overall, it really just boils down to, it's going to leave the professionals that do this at a high level, that really know what they're talking about. We're going to be fine. I think it's the agent that's doing this halfway, or that's not all in, that isn't committed to the business like they should be.
Yes.
They're the ones that are going to suffer the most or be impacted the most.
I totally agree.
They're going to be adverse.
I do think, I think a little bit beyond that too is where the industry was trending anyway. Like here in Tennessee, they came down with the law about the wholesale space, right? And so they're very clear here in Tennessee that you cannot wholesale properties if you are not licensed. And so many wholesalers either, move their businesses or figure out how to do it a little more quietly. And then we had some who just simply went ahead and got their license. And so what I'm finding here in Tennessee, we have this surgence of unlicensed people doing property management as rent increases and home sales decline. You have these quote unquote leasing companies that are not necessarily doing any real estate related transactions. And so the industry, in my opinion, is trending up in terms of regulation. Another debate on the table has to do with whether or not there is enough educational requirements for licensing here. And so
I will have to say no.
So realistically, I think this is not just a, trade association conversation. This is an industry and regulation conversation as we really start to lean in on what it takes to be a practitioner. What does it mean to be a steward of information, personal information, helping folks purchase the largest purchase they'll make in their entire lives and treating it as such. And so I really think, yes, this will weed out folks who, take the folded arm pictures and on social media. I do think this will also, that we can expect a huge surge of education as brokers and real estate practitioners from the trade association on how we navigate this, the use of forms, the use of systems. But I'm also curious around, does this devalue the value of the MLS system with the technology that we know today? Like, that's another conversation, because I hear us talking about how it's going to impact our money. And I'm saying, with all these realtor dudes,
I think, I think they are shooting themselves in the foot. NAR and these MLSs, local MLSs, and the Charlotte area, Canopy MLS, you can't even join the MLS unless you've paid your NAR dues. So they make you contingent on being part of MLS to join it, to being part of NAR, National Association of Realtors, which I hated. But again, in order to gain MLS access, I had to join it, right? It's like, what is your value? What are you providing? What are you doing here?
Yeah,
Um,
I think that's going to be a real space of
yeah.
opportunity for us to really talk about, because I mean, I get a lot of high level education that's not connected to the Realtor organization. So when you talk about being an industry leader in education and
Yeah.
specialization, there's an abundance of that available to us across countries, right? And
Hmm.
then when you start thinking about how consumers access information now, usually they're sending us the listings, right? They're saying, oh, I saw on this
Yeah.
site and this site, and I want you to, of course, we're saying, that's great, but it's under contract. This is what this means, right? But in most cases, there is an abundance of resources for people
Yeah.
to identify properties being available that does not come through the MLS, right? It does not have to come through the MLS as a tool for us.
Now, as we have to backtrack a little bit, in the Reddit thread I read, it was we don't need realtors. I'm the one that found the house online. So what are they even good for, right? And to that, I say, I'm working with a myriad of clients. Chances are you are going to find, because you're looking for what you want, right? You're
Right.
going to find that home that is perfect, that you like, that checks off all your boxes, right? And then we're gonna schedule time to go see it. But you're not high, like, to me, anybody can show homes. You can get a monkey to show a home, right? You're not getting me to show a home. You're getting me for my expertise and educating you throughout the process of, while we see the home, what to be on the lookout for negotiating, to make sure you have a smooth, seamless transaction, because so many things come up to where you don't even know about.
Right.
Like, it's my job to protect you, right? I'm that buffer, right? To where you don't even know about. Like, that is what my value is. Not to necessarily, because every night I'm at home looking at Zillow, right? Everybody's looking at homes. So chances are you're going to find that home that you want, right? And then you bring it to us, and then we're going to take it from there.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. So one of the things that I tell my clients when we do our consultations is,
Mm-hmm.
if they're utilizing FHA financing versus conventional financing, right? When I go into a house, I'm not just looking at, does it check off all of the things that maybe they need. So maybe they need 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, and it's in the neighborhood that they want to be in, close to the parks and the schools. That's great. But when I walk in, I'm looking, are there cracks in the foundation? Is there chipped paint? What's the condition of the roof? Are there leaks through the house? Does it have, like, all of the things that are required for FHA financing? I'm paying attention to that if I'm working with a buyer that's utilizing that type of financing. So that way, when we have the conversation, I know I can educate them on how we need to write the offer, what we should be paying attention to, what are some of the things that I notice. Even though I'm not a licensed inspector, I can see with my my professional eye, the things
Right.
that will potentially be a challenge within the transaction. And
Yep.
I'm writing the offer based on that. I'm looking for ways to negotiate as I walk in on every property that I look into for my clients. If they're utilizing conventional financing, my eye is still paying attention to those things, but it may not be as, we're not going to be as strict with certain issues that potentially could come up, right? When a buyer works with us and they say, oh, I have limited resources to make repairs, I'm thinking about all of those things. It's not just, let me go open the door, show you the house. There are all the other
Mm-hmm.
things that I'm thinking about as a professional to ensure that my client is positioned correctly.
Most definitely. Most definitely. What is one thing I wanted to say? It was seller concessions, right? And I can say that I can't speak for where you all are. In the Carolinas, that's just been the norm. We've asked for seller concessions on every offer for since rates got to 6.5, because we want to seller concessions either to pay for closing costs or to buy down the rate. So for the buyers and sellers that think that prices are going to, well, first, do you think prices are going to come down because of this?
No.
I think prices are going to begin to regulate, but it's not for this. I think
Yeah.
my personal opinion is we're in this artificial recession space nobody talks about. And so as practitioners, I'm sure you guys are all getting emails from auction.com and Zone and
Yeah.
whatever. And so you see an uptick in the number of pre-foreclosures, foreclosures, lost mid default. And so we're starting to see a lot of that uptick, right? And so this won't impact it, but I do think there are some other challenges in the industry that will. And it still won't be where buyers are going to receive the benefit. I think as prices start to fall, right? Because, if I'm an investor, right, and I, go flip this house at a certain interest rate and value, and I do my normal flip, I have an expectation of a certain price. Now, I may have built in some concessions to consider, but the reality of it is I'm not going to be far off from the number. I mean, I'm going to be pretty consistent if the market will bear it. And so, I don't think we're at a point of desperation with capacity and stock. To your point, sir, I think we're seeing, investors and contractors say, to hell with renovation and rehab, we'll just build it. You know what I mean? The cost to build versus the cost to rehab now is almost one and the same. And I
I'm
can
not.
see
I got
greater.
excited. Because I'm over here looking at like 3 development projects right now. You mentioned it, and I'm like, you hit the nail on the head. Like
It's a real conversation.
that's it.
Most of my investors now are getting into a space of like, what would it take for us to knock it down and put up a new structure? And when we get there, the value is just simply greater. And it's going to be less of a space for negotiation.
Yeah. No, I think the buyers that think getting rid of this commission think prices are going to go down. I think it's just again short-sighted, because the sellers aren't going to reduce their price simply because they're not paying both sides, right? They're going to net more. Barring they may even net less, but the purchase price is not gonna go up. The reason why I say they might net less is because the seller concessions will increase, right? But the sales price is not gonna go down. Especially again, I don't know about inventory where you all are. In the Carolinas and the Charlotte area, there's limited inventory. So you're telling me right down the block, if there's one home for sale and it's August, this proposed settlement goes into place. You're telling me that seller is going to reduce their price 3% when they know they have no competition? No, we're in a capitalist society. That seller is going to want the most money,
right?
Period. Whatever the market bears. So unless we get all the sellers together and everybody agrees that because we don't have to pay the buyer's commission, we're going to reduce the price by 2.5%, 3%, 4%. That's the only way it's going to work. But I don't see that happening.
Yeah, I don't think that we're going to see a decline in prices. Inventory is also low here in California. And so I think, again, it really is just going to go down to contract negotiation. I don't think that means that we're going to have a reduction in prices. If we do, it really will be more so with regards to where rates are and things of that nature. Maybe not as many buyers are in the pool right now, so inventory may be sitting a little bit longer, and so we may see some adjustments there, but not because of this proposed settlement.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. We have loans with Mike. Probably best to negotiate the commission and the addendum as opposed to buyer credit, since there's a 3 to 6% cap on credits for buyer financing.
Now that to me is interesting. That Mike brings that up, because that's something that is at the forefront of my mind when we think about that. Because even when you've hit that 6% mark, if you have an administrative fee or something charged to your buyers, you're the first thing that they want to cut, right? They don't even want to talk about it. And so, again, from a regulation standpoint, I do think this is bigger than the trade association. These are things that the trade associations are going to have to look at advocacy for around these buyers, and also for the cost of professional services, because VA had working with VA clients,
VA, right? FHA, like it's just, they are, again, we talk about it's going to be underserved and just taken for granted in this discussion are certain demographics and VA clients, FHA. Like, it's just, again, I think it's very short-sighted proposed settlement.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I'm, but I think, for me, when I think about it, I think this is where, you know, the opportunity really exists.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
when you start thinking about, one,
Mhm.
we can be more intentional about our business model. Like, let's get back to the niche and core competence. I saw someone ask about the expertise with new construction.
Yes,
Like,
yes.
we have to really start to hone in on what our core competencies are, how to improve that skill set that we have to really, really be the experts in what we do. I am a general contractor. I have built new construction. So to your point, Letrice, like you mentioned, I'm not just showing the house. I'm walking in with this set of eyes, my expertise. I
Yep.
am walking in as all these experts for you.
Right.
And so no, there, I'm pretty firm. I'm gonna state the value. This is what we're gonna do. This is how we're gonna get to the end of the rope. And that is no matter who pays it, right? That
Yep.
this is in fact the value that I bring, and this is my expectation. So I think that's going to be the shift, is like, how much of this in terms of the opportunity can we really lift up? Because it's going to be, it's going to be a fight to get there. But yes, I'm already thinking about how we shift our marketing. How do we revamp the website? What education
Hmm.
am I providing to my brokers and agents? What are we encouraging them to really start doing in terms of foundational things and practices in the business? So I think it's a good opportunity for us to get busy.
No, it's
Yeah.
definitely an opportunity, and an opportunity for, as you mentioned, various business models. I think you're going to see that a la carte broker, to where they're offering certain, and then again, this is just leads to, again, I just see the end goal or ending of it
Mhm.
leading into further litigation. But you have people, brokers, are like, okay, you only want to pay me a flat fee. Well, I will show you 3 homes, right? Or you pay me a flat fee, I will negotiate the contract, but after that, it's all you, right? Like,
Mm.
what actually are going to be the duties and the fiduciary duties of the realtist or realtor? Like, can I just negotiate the contract and be that's it because that's all I was paid for, or knowing that that inspection report is going to be god awful, right? Knowing that different things are going to come up, like, and just do I just leave them to their own devices? But you have these different business models that could come into play, to where, okay, you don't want to pay me my full freight. Well, I can offer various things, and then you can tack them on, and then then you get the whole.
But do you think if people go with that model, that would leave brokers and agents up for more litigation in the future?
Yeah.
Well, they didn't explain this, or they didn't explain that, or I thought I was they were gonna take care of the entire contract, and they kind of left me off. They knew that I wasn't a skilled professional in the space, and they took advantage of my
Yeah.
lack of knowledge, right? So I
Well,
think that
they're saying that now.
yeah.
They're saying no, but I agree with you. No, it's opening up for future litigation, and
Mhm.
that's where I believe our local MLSs and the National Association of Realtors needs to be very clear, and when they find out, and succinct as far as what is our role, like what can we do, what can we offer, to where we can avoid this future litigation if it's possible, right? And I also see a lot of attorneys drafting up these addendums, these one-offs, to where,
Yeah.
okay, you signed it, that I was only going to represent you for the offer,
Mhm.
and that's that, right? And then you can't say you didn't. I mean, they're gonna say it, because the sellers are saying they didn't know that they can negotiate the commission. They're
Right.
gonna say it, but at least you have their signature, and you can say we went through it.
Yeah,
I
I
think
think
it would. Go
go
ahead.
ahead. Go
No,
ahead.
I was gonna say, I think it would just be a really cool idea that if the settlement terms included like the establishment of a buyer fund, right? As part of like this transitional space where buyers can access funds to cover concessions and or professional representation. Like, I
Mhm.
mean, when I took my class, and I teach pre-license, so this stuff is like at the forefront of my mind when we talk about caveat emptor, right? The
Yeah, yeah.
reason we walk
Let the
into
buyer
buyer
beware.
representation, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And so now we're saying it's okay to let the buyer beware if they can't afford it, right? That's essentially where we've gone back to. And so I just think it would be nice to think about how do we transition but give some supports to that middle ground that we're going to be in.
And the thing is, I want to get to Tracy's comment, but the thing is, like, we were here before. Like in the 80s, we were here. We were going where everything wasn't public. It wasn't just readily available as far as commissions and all that. But then you had a lot of backroom deals. You had a lot of buyers going to the listing agent to where they are thinking they're going to get a better deal because they're going to the listing agent, and they realize that the listing agent represents, they don't realize, but the listing agent represents the seller. They're not looking out for you whatsoever. They have no duty, responsibility to look out for you at all. Right. And if you're telling me that buyer that may have bought 2 homes in their lifetime is going up against a skilled negotiator like Letrice, who's going to win that?
Yeah.
Like every day of the week. Tracy,
Letrice
I
was
am
undefeated.
No, all the time. But yeah, no, you're absolutely correct. I agree.
Tracy, I apologize. So again, Tracy leaves his comment is most agents don't know what they're doing. He almost lost $75,000 in DD because his agent didn't extend the due diligence day. Agents walking in home stealing. So I can honestly say not all agents are good. Like, you can go to any profession, right? Not all lawyers are good. Not all doctors are good. Not all agents are good. Not all, just because they pass the test doesn't mean they're proficient at the practice of real estate. And I'm glad you didn't lose it. It says almost lost. And part of me is wondering, why was there a $75,000 due diligence?
I was just going to
like,
what kind of deal was this?
don't get me wrong. In the heat of COVID, I had a client put down, actually from California, outside of Sacramento, but buying investment properties here in North Carolina, in the Charlotte area. It was a $350,000 property, and we lost out on like 3 properties and 3 offers. It was the height of COVID when offers were going crazy, like significantly above ask and all that. We didn't go above ask. We still came in at 350, but he offered $100,000 due diligence. Granted, the home was like 5 years old, right? And I was able to get in and we saw it and all that, but I advised him, I don't really agree with this. I don't agree with this, right? That's $100,000. Like, no, it's like, no matter what, you're buying this home. It could be falling down, but $100,000 on a $300,000 home, like, you're buying it, right? So, but yeah, it's just, I don't know what the circumstances were for that $75,000 due diligence. I'm glad you didn't lose it. But again, not all agents aren't created equal.
They are definitely not all created equal. I actually just had a meeting this morning with my brokerage, with my agents, just talking about, they're going to really want to double down and hone in on their skill set, right? Because that's what this market is going to require. If you are planning to thrive, you're going to have to work on improving your negotiating skills and showing what your value proposition is. And that's what it really boils down to, which is what it should be anyway. Because I have gotten into contract with agents that just don't know what they're doing.
and you're doing both sides, but yet they're getting half of it, right?
I'm only representing the buyer, or I'm only representing the seller. So that is going to produce its own set of challenges. But you're right. A lot of agents that are in this industry they're here because they're like, oh, well, I'm going to be well compensated. I'll sell 1 or 2 houses and it'll be fine. But it does go into it. You can see those agents versus the agent that is doing this full time, this is their full-time profession, and that they have really honed their skill set to ensure that they can, properly represent their clients.
I think the stat maybe a couple months ago was that 49% of agents sold 1 home in the past year.
Yes.
And if you sold more than 3 or 4, I'm getting that number wrong. If you sold more than 3 or 4, you're in the top 30% of agents in the country. Yes. Right? So just because somebody has a license and is a realtor and promoting themselves and putting fancy pictures online and Instagram, see their track record. Like, are they promoting their brokerages sales, or is it theirs? Right? What are they doing? What are they doing?
But I do think it's important, to some of the comments made, you want to interview your professional. I have had a number of clients just based upon the time of evening they text me, based upon their loan approval and their wish list, that I quickly determined that they needed to be referred to a different agent.
Yeah.
And so, we also have to be good stewards of our time. And it's important for buyers to really interview. We are going to walk this journey with you. If you expect me to come have dinner with your family as we talk through listings, you need to find an agent who's willing to come and eat your mashed potatoes with you. Right. And so,
I'm not eating anybody's mashed potatoes.
In real life, I mean, I literally had a client. I sat down. He was like, "I'm cooking some chicken legs. I want you to eat these chicken legs." Right? He ate it too. You was I gonna say, "No, I ate the chicken." Right? But I'm saying that because these are relationship skills, right?
Yeah.
Some real estate practitioners are real estate practitioners, or used car salesmen. Parading as real estate practitioners. Right. And so it's really important that buyers own the interview process for what they're looking for. Do we align? Do we understand what your needs are? Have we worked with the particular type of financing you need? Do we have the right partners and industry professionals in our circle for you? And so to me, that's also the onus is on the buyer to make sure they're not walking in mistrust or distrust with their real estate professional.
I totally agree. And when you talk about education for the real estate professional, it's a cliche term, but I wholeheartedly believe it's true. The riches are in the niches. Like, hone in on what you want to specialize in and focus entirely on that. Now, you may think you will miss out on other opportunities, but you won't. You won't. They'll come and you get to choose if you want to take them or not, but niche down and be the expert in that field. Be the go-to in that field. So your talent is undeniable. Be so good that they can't ignore you.
Great.
So I've had you all for about an hour. I know I told you all it's gonna be about an hour. I want to be a man of my word. Is there anything you all want to say as we close? We have about 50 people in the live stream right now. Anything you want to say? And how can people get in contact with you as well?
Okay, so I am the broker owner of the Langley Stone Group. We are located in Pasadena, California, and we're looking to grow and bring more agents on. So if you're interested and you're looking for a place, we'd love to have an opportunity to have a conversation. We're also always looking for clients. So we have about 18 agents to service our clientele. And so it would be great if you reached out to us. We are the Langley Stone Group on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, TikTok, all the social media platforms. We're the Langley Stone Group. My name is Letrice Barge, and that is my handle on Instagram. So if you're looking to, just for more information here in the Southern California area, I'd love to be a resource for you. One thing I do want to say is all of the headlines are to capture and to there's shock value in it, right?
Yeah.
Get down into the weeds and understand what's going on. Don't take a headline and run with it. If you are a licensed professional, don't be scared off, being in this industry. I think it's really just an opportunity for you to, they say cream rises to the top. Be the cream in the industry. That's really what it boils down to. I got into this industry, like I said, about 4 years ago, and I absolutely love it. And it's been a great career choice for me, but it's always requiring me to level up. And in any industry, regardless of whether you're working the standard corporate route, you're an entrepreneur, whatever avenue you choose to generate income for yourself or revenue for your business, it's always going to require you to level up. You have to stay on top of what's happening, the latest trends, changes to the market, whichever industry you're in, that's what's going to be required. And that's all this is requiring now. There's a shift in the conversation. So the seller isn't paying 100% of the commission. professional is negotiating their own commission. And it really is about you understanding your value proposition and how to effectively convey that to your client. I don't want you to be scared off. I just want you to educate yourself, because it's not the end of the industry. It's not good. Like, it's not going to be.
People are still going to buy and sell. People are still going to use real estate agents. It's going to happen.
Is built on relationships.
Yeah.
It's the same thing where we saw Zillow and Open Door and Redfin, like all of these other platforms. People were scared. Oh my goodness, what's going to happen? Well, at the end of the day, you're still going to have buyers that choose to go one route, but there are still a subset of buyers and sellers that want to use real estate professionals to help them purchase and sell one of the largest transactions that they're going to complete in their lives. That's just the reality of it. So continue to improve your skill set and you'll be perfectly fine.
Very well said. Thank you. Thank you.
You said so much, madam.
Exactly. I'm glad I don't have to go right after her, Rasheedah.
I am a broker here, Tennessee, Mississippi, Arkansas. So dreamteammemphis.com. But as the Young Realtors National President, and a lot of Young Realtors members who actually tuned in, I am so appreciative for all the work that we're doing, because we're centered in education and outreach, right? So when we started to talk about this shift, we started to navigate what kind of education can we extend to our members. So I know I see a few of you all on the call that are working on our foundations, back to the basics, educational coursework. And so, I encourage you guys to connect to Young Realtors division, youngrealtors.org. We have a monthly membership meeting on this Thursday, the 21st, 7 o'clock Central. Just tap in. I think you'll find a wealth of opportunity in the network, connecting with other real estate professionals, understanding how they are successful in their market is a big part of how we're all successful. Every time I go to a real estate conference, I come back with a referral that closes, right? I come back with a new person to add to my referral network. And so NARAB and Young Realtors have been really, really good for me in terms of that and really navigating that space. So I do want to lead with, if you need the support. It doesn't sound like Letrice is taking on part-time agents right now.
I'm taking on everyone.
Okay, but I do think that, really to something you said, sir, like, find your niche, right? We need practitioners that look like us in the marketplace. We need to make sure we're advocating for Black home ownership in Black community with Black families. And part of our core strategy with Young Realtors Division is to make sure we're equipped to do that, right? Among all the other things that we do. And so I just want to say, connect youngrealtors.org. On all YRD National on all platforms, and then just tap into opportunities like this. I appreciate you, sir, for being so quick on your feet to invite us and including Young Realtors Division in the conversation, because these conversations need to be ongoing as the market continues to shift. And so I appreciate the invite today.
Oh, most definitely. One, I want to thank both of you for being so flexible and giving of your time.
Welcome.
Truth is, I reached out to them like last evening and they both moved stuff around. So I appreciate you greatly. I just thought this conversation needed to happen sooner than later to be able to, again, talk about the consumer side, but also talk about the industry. And I appreciate the insights and knowledge you all shared. I'm here in the Carolinas. I'm with Lifestyle International Realty, and we are the largest minority-owned brokerage here in the Carolinas. So if you're looking to join a brokerage in the Carolinas, please reach out to us. We are here to help. We, just like the YRD is founded on educating, like we train and educate our realtors ad nauseum. Sometimes they say it's too much, which I'll take. I'd rather you be over prepared than go into a situation and not know what to expect and how to handle it, right? But not just the practical stuff. As you see, I love social media. We'll get you in front of people. I love capturing attention. But yeah, no, thank you for rocking with us tonight. Contact information for everyone. It's not in the description yet. I will put it in the description, all your contact information, so they can reach out to you if they so choose to. You all enjoy the rest of your evening. Enjoy your night. Enjoy your family. We'll talk to y'all later.
Thank you.
Take
Bye
care.
now.